In the spirit of lighting your competitive fire for 2024, I want to issue you a challenge. If you were going to achieve one thing in the next 12 to 36 months, which was so significant to you that you would be in the mood to pop champagne, what would that one moment be? That, my friends, according to my friends over at Forbes, is a champagne moment. A moment which requires celebration and gives you the necessary permission to take stock of your personal and professional achievements. And in the case of entrepreneurs or small business owners, you may consider yourself a business-savvy executive and one of the greatest minds in business. However, even the top tier in your field always know that there's room for improvement. Now, if you're too unwilling to swallow your pride and accept external assistance, you're in all likelihood missing out on creating a competitive advantage for your business because, according to the Forbes Business Council, here are some of the top reasons entrepreneurs, especially those in the small business space, should consider hiring a business coach. It increases your productivity by an average of 53%, lowers your cost by 23%, increases your profitability by an average of 22%, your job satisfaction rate among your employees and executives will increase by an average of 61%, and finally, you'll see a 34% reduction in client grievances. These statistics should be music to the ears of my friend Tyler Martin. He's a certified business coach and CPA who is acclaimed for his expertise in elevating businesses. Tyler's journey in the entrepreneurial world is marked by significant achievements, to scaling a staffing firm to over $25 million in annual revenue, to growing a CPA firm to over 200 business clients in less than 5 years. His experience also extends to major financial roles in a nonprofit, to board positions in high-asset credit unions and staffing firms. His entrepreneurial superpower lies in his real-world experience as a seasoned entrepreneur who has been able to navigate the building and selling of successful businesses. He's got more than 2 decades in the field, and he specializes in guiding service-based enterprises with revenues ranging from $1 to $20 million, applying unique strategies which are intended to spur significant growth. Martin joined me this week to talk all about small business growth, how to ascend in the small business community and experience sustainable success. He also provided me a blueprint on how to avoid the pitfalls that cause many business owners to stumble along the way. It was a wide-ranging conversation all about successful entrepreneurship strategies that I don't want you to miss. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Tyler, if you're ready, let's dive into it, my friend. Oh, welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn all about your 2 decades in entrepreneurship. Great to see you this afternoon, and happy Friday to you.
Yeah, happy Friday to you too. It's our favorite day, right?
Absolutely, my friend. And I know, Tyler, that you're a certified business coach and CPA that wants to help people maximize their business potential. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me all about the great work that you do and what makes you so fabulous, my friend.
Yeah, so we all have like these special skills, our zone of genius they call it. My area is definitely in the area of building and scaling a company, operational efficiency, understanding finances, and that's what I've done pretty much for, like you said, the last decade. Or last few decades, I should say, and that makes me sound really old, but that's what I've been doing, and that's what I love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, I want to dive into the idea of actually hiring a business coach like yourself and the benefits that come from that. Because no matter how many more decades you have in business, there's always room for improvement. Isn't there? So tell me about the benefits in your perspective from hiring a business coach.
Yeah, I mean, first we have to assume it's the right business coach, or someone that you connect with, and it's someone that has the skill set that can take you to the next level. So, assuming that part of the equation is met, the benefits are huge. I mean, it gives you someone that has a different perspective, different experiences, and in all likelihood, a different taking their business to a different level than what the person that's using the business coach currently has. Like for me, for example, I use business coaches. I have a sales coach, and then I have a business coach, and they have given me so many eye-opening experiences that I wouldn't have learned on my own, or I wouldn't have even thought were achievable without their help. So it really kind of opens doors that maybe you didn't think were even possible. I would say that would be to summarize it. That would be the biggest thing, just open doors that maybe you didn't think were even possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Life is a constant game of networking, right? You'll never know who you meet until you put yourself out there as a business owner, right?
That is so true.
Absolutely. And, Tyler, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on the changing landscape of small business. Since coming out of the pandemic, everybody wants to be their own boss, but not so much the operational side of businesses. So before people launch into becoming a solo entrepreneur, what are some things you think they should keep in mind?
In terms of being a solo entrepreneur or just running a business in general?
We'll go both ways on that question, so you can attack it any way you wish.
Sure. So I think, someone starting out as a solo entrepreneur, so we're talking kind of a micro business. I think that's sometimes the most challenging for people because they haven't ever had to deal with any of the operational or finance side of the business. In fact, oftentimes I think that's the biggest barrier for people wanting to go out on their own. And once they get past that, I think the ones that do really well, they do take time to learn the number side of their business. They do stay organized in terms of their growth. Once you get past the solopreneur side, probably one of the biggest areas that most business owners struggle with are the people side of the business, managing people, adding people, getting efficiency out of their staff, dealing with, staff quit, they're unhappy, they're unpredictable sometimes. And I think that's the biggest challenge as you start to scale. One of them, at least. Cash flow is obviously another big one that as companies start to scale, dealing with and making sure it's consistently positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Tyler, I know that you've have some experience in the field of nonprofits and also in sort of your board positions on high asset credit unions. So tell me about the changing landscape of nonprofits too, because I know nonprofits have really come to the forefront before and after the pandemic, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, nonprofits have always been out there. I think, maybe a little bit more visibility. I think it also depends where you live. Where I live, homelessness is a big challenge. And so there's a lot of nonprofits, and in particular, that's one that I was on the executive team for a while. It's a different world. I think the biggest thing in terms of managing the business of nonprofit as opposed to a for-profit company, it's just a different world. I mean, as a for-profit company, you're definitely thinking about scaling, growing, profitability. As a nonprofit, it's about as many people as you can help and spreading the money as far as it'll go. And then also looking for grants and different types of opportunities to get funding for your nonprofit. So it's a totally different lens. It's actually pretty fascinating. And it's very rewarding to be able to help people in different ways. I mean, thank God for nonprofits because they're able to help a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, whether it be diseases or homelessness. I mean, they're just a fabric of our society for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Tyler, as a seasoned entrepreneur yourself, I know that one of the things you take the most pride in is your practical experience in helping people navigate uh, how to scale a business. I know that you've helped businesses grow and you've managed budgets for as much as up to $1 to $20 million, my friend. So I'm curious, how do you think you've evolved as a business owner, and what's the one lesson that you've taken from the business side of your world that you've applied to your personal life as well?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely dealing with different size small businesses. So, as a $500,000 business is a lot different than a $25 million business, even though they're both small businesses. And definitely, I think one thing I've taken from that is understanding as you're scaling that the problems change, and the numbers there get to be more numbers, and your decision making can really impact those numbers and have a bigger impact one or another, whether it be good or bad. So I'd say that's one thing I learned. And then as far as like a business lesson that's kind of gone into my personal, I think it's around working with people, managing people. I think, once it clicks for you in terms of how to effectively manage a team, I think a lot of those things you kind of take on in your personal life too, in terms of how you interact with people. And what I mean by that is like respect, a very high level respect for people. I think giving people the benefit of the doubt. Always looking for the best in people. I think a lot of those things can translate really well into your personal life as well as your business life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, one of the tenets that I live my personal life by is that relationships are the heartbeat of a success. And I always tell people that life is a constant game of networking. So tell me about the importance of building relationships, and what do you think is the key or secret to doing that effectively?
Yeah, I don't think there's really honestly a great secret. I think it's really the best thing you can do with networking is interact with people when you don't need them. I think the worst type of networking is when you reach out to people because you have a problem or there's an urgent situation. I think the best time to network is when you really don't need anything from anyone. And it's really you come with an open mind and an open spirit in terms of just wanting to build relationships. And those are the ones that I think tend to build deeper relationships and longer term relationships, and they're invaluable. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been stuck in a situation and I'll sit down and think like, oh man, who have I interacted with in the past? Who haven't I followed up with recently? And it'll just hit me. And then I'll reach out to someone and they'll like open five doors for me that didn't even exist because I've built that goodwill in the relationship over the years that has allowed me now to benefit from that. And it's a long game. I mean, I think the problem why sometimes people don't focus on networking is because they think of it too short-sighted. They think of it as just what can it do for me today? But really networking's a long game. It's really relationship development, and it's really honestly not expecting anything out of it. It just ends up happening.
Yeah, no, I just wanted your opinion on the importance of the follow up in business because it's an integral part of success, isn't it?
That's a great question. Yeah. You mean in terms of like following up with your network or just anything in general? Is that what you mean?
Just anything in general or cold leads because it's important to nurture relationships too after you make the initial contact, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point. I mean, following up for sure is important, whether that be a cold lead or whether that be a relationship. I mean, staying in contact with folks, I think, is a really critical. And nowadays we have so many different mediums to be able to do that through. I mean, many years ago it was just pretty much over the phone. Now you how you can message people. You can whether that be text message or even Instagram or LinkedIn or phone or Zoom meetings. It doesn't even have to be in person or phone. You just have so many different options. So our excuses are less. I think we all feel like we have less time to do that, but it's a critical component of forging relationships. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, how do you view the term competitive advantage in business? What does that term mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking in the world of like consulting, business coaching, where you're providing a personal service, definitely your competitive advantage. Your number one competitive advantage is who you are and what you bring to the table. Like nobody can match who you are as an individual and how you present solutions. So I would say that, frankly, is the biggest competitive advantage an individual can bring. If you're talking a business with multiple employees, you got a lot of moving parts there, but you definitely can pick a competitive advantage. And I think the most important part is once you decide what that is, to really vocalize it in your marketing, really demonstrate it and live it, and what makes you unique. One of my clients is a mental health group. And they've got this beautiful facilities. It's all about taking care of the client, and they live it and breathe it. So their competitive advantage is they give this safe environment where when you walk in, you just like instantly feel it, from their staff to the facilities to the way they treat you, little snacks and drinks and quiet, safe rooms. They embody what they try to present as their competitive advantage. So I think living it and breathing is an important part too, and not just saying, "Hey, this is what we do different," because everybody says they're different. Very few people actually live and breathe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, outside of hosting this podcast, I help and assist businesses in becoming a more inclusive with minimal effort in the pursuit of hiring folks with disabilities and also just become more diversified in general. So I always tell business owners that hiring folks with disabilities is a competitive advantage because they can provide you a different set of lenses or a different perspective. And Tyler, it's personal for me because I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at birth. So, I tell businesses it's important to pull out the chair at the table of inclusion for folks with disabilities, isn't it?
I love that you advocate for that and that you make that part of your journey. That is so cool. Absolutely. I think including people, regardless of what the situation is, but including people that are different from whatever each one of us is, I think is really important. I think that's what makes kind of the world turn. And it actually makes for a really cool workforce too, because you get all these different perspectives, and whether it be you learn different things. It might be patience, it might be a different way to communicate, it might be about different person's different cultural background, but you learn so much and it makes you deeper as an individual. So yeah, I love, one, that you do that, and two, your question there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Tyler, wanted to get your perspective on the idea of having grit as an entrepreneur. What does that mean to you to have entrepreneurial grit and tenacity? What do you think that means to you?
Yeah, I think, this is something really tough for entrepreneurs. And I think why you see probably 80+% of businesses actually fail. Um, Business isn't linear, and we'll see this on the internet a lot nowadays. People put these graphics of, we think business is growing like this, and it's a line that goes straight up. When in reality, your business is like this, and it'll show, the line going constantly like a heartbeat monitor, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I think that's probably my best explanation of grit is that you have to be able to live through those up and down graph points. Sometimes you're at the high and you think you are the best business owner in the world. And then the next day you get knocked in the teeth and you think you're the worst in the world. I recently had a client come to me and she's been knocking it out of the park and she's still knocking it out of the park. But she had a couple different employees come to her and basically just share with her they're probably going to leave the company and go do their own thing. And like any good business owner, you take that very personal and you go, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing my star employees, and is this going to happen? Is everybody going to leave?" And that's the challenge. You go from this high to suddenly you don't think you have it all figured out. And the grit means sticking through that. Grit means being able to look ahead and go, "Hey, this isn't the end of the world. There's going to be a couple bumps every other day or every other week, and I'm going to just work through them, and I'm going to figure out the solve the problems and take the next step. And that point on the graph the next time is going to be higher than it was the previous high, and that's just the way it works. And the people that do that tend to be successful. But once again, 80% of businesses go out of business. So the vast majority quit probably before they've gotten past that graph point.
Yeah, and Tyler, you said your coaching approach as a business owner is a business owner and coach is rooted in the idea of practical wisdom. So tell me, what does practical wisdom mean to you and from a business perspective?
Well, I mean, frankly, some of that right there, what I just said is practical wisdom. Someone that's been in the trenches of running a business knows that you're going to lose employees occasionally. As much of that stinks, knows what that feels like, knows that that can set you back. Sometimes 6 months to a year, depending on who the employee is. That's practical wisdom. I mean, practical wisdom is knowing when you have to meet payroll and you're obligated for all of your staff and cash flow is a little bit tight. That's practical wisdom. That's living it and going through that situation and knowing how to deal with that. I mean, there's literally, I could probably go down a list of 100 things that when you're running a business, especially when you're scaling it, that if you've lived it, you kind of can understand really what that individual's going through when you're working with them and really connect with them on how to make them understand that it's temporary and these are the steps to get around it.
Yeah, and Tyler, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned from your biggest business failure? And how has it made you a better person and a better entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think my biggest business failures, I'll say, started in my career, I'd say about 20 years ago now, was mostly around not knowing how to manage people, not being empathetic, not really being clear in terms of what it takes to be successful in a role, not being open-minded and listening to their perspective and just being basically more patient too. And I'd say that's by far probably what I would say was the biggest failure. Now, the success out of that was me having to deal with a lot of pain in terms of not being able to do it correctly. And then through a mentor who stuck with me and shared his knowledge and his experience and wisdom. And then it finally clicked for me. And once it clicked for me, it really not only changed me personally, but really changed the business dramatically because turnover almost eliminated, efficiency of the team increased dramatically, and that was all really because of my own behavior in being more effective in the way I was as a leader.
Yeah, and Tyler, one of the things you say is that you describe yourself as a transformational business mentor, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of having a business mentor. Why that's so important to you, and what do you think it means to be thinking forward in business? So you can take those two questions any direction you'd like, my friend.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have, I think, 133 podcast episodes for my podcast, and I don't quote me on numbers here because I'm not exactly sure, but of any time I've asked any one of those guests, and most of them are highly successful people, I asked any of those guests, "Hey, have you ever had a mentor, a coach, or someone that's helped you to get to the next level?" Almost to the T, every single one has said yes. And it's interesting. I mean, when you stop back and you think about that, I've got there's a guy on my show, I think he was a billionaire, and he could name a list of people that he worked with, many years ago that forged changes in his career. I mean, I could just go in my head, they're all clicking as the people that have said something about having mentors or coaches. And they really the right ones. And that's the key, is the right ones that you're working with, someone that you click with that has the right background. It can take you to a whole different level that you didn't think was possible. So it's huge. I mean, I really do think it's a big deal, but I will really drive that it is the right ones. And unfortunately, in the coaching area, it's very crowded space. I know I'm not crowded, but there's a lot of coaches. I'm not sure if many of them, unfortunately, can bring that type of transformational change.
Yeah, you really have to be selective in the people that you work with, right?
For sure. You definitely have to interview them, check with references, really try to understand their background if it fits with you. And one thing I keep saying is make sure you connect with them, because even if it's kind of like a doctor, if you've ever heard that saying, bedside manner. Even if a doctor is an incredible doctor, but he has a horrible bedside manner, pretty difficult to get what you want out of that individual. Well, I think that's kind of like with a coach too. If you just don't click with them, I don't care how good they are, it's not probably going to get you to your goals.
Yeah, and Tyler, you and I have both heard the saying that business is a people business, and I know that's one of your key strategies to help grow and scale a business, to have the ability to connect and relate with people. But I'm also curious to ask you, what are some key strategies that you've implemented over the years to increase revenue and diversity as well? So what do you think are the keys to implementing strategies that will grow and scale a business?
Yeah, I mean, so what my process is, I'm a little different from I think most business coaches because I am a CPA. So my way of approaching business coaching is really driven by numbers. So I take kind of a small business CFO hat, and I mold that with a business coaching. So a big part of my strategy, and I don't even know if I'd call it strategy, more of my process, is every business has something called, it has levers. I call them levers, and there's 12 of them. And these levers is how you grow a business. Pulling these levers is how you grow your business. And it's not, you mentioned revenue, and although revenue is important, there's a saying that says revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. And that just means that revenue is very sexy, but all that really matters is profit, what you're bringing to the bottom line. And sometimes when you pull these levers, it's not about growing revenue. It's actually about some of the other things that get you to your bottom line, managing those better, working on those that actually get you more profit. And that's, I think, the hardest thing in scaling to deal with is people always think revenue, 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 which is cool, but that's not always a sign of scaling. Sometimes it's just operational efficiency can bring out more to your bottom line than actually increasing your revenue.
Yeah, and Tyler, I'm curious. What do you think is the key to creating a great organizational culture that's rooted in diversity, where everyone feels like they're being heard within a business operation? So, what do you think is the key to creating a great organizational culture?
The ownership, if it's a small business, so I'll say the ownership, leadership, they absolutely have to value that, and they have to put time in it, and they have to assess it constantly. Is the culture the way I want it to be? Am I investing in it to be diversified? Am I really listening to everyone? You'll have some businesses where the owner doesn't even talk to half of her staff. And then you'll have other business owners that give a one-on-one time to anyone and make sure they have that time. Things like that can make a world of difference. Now I realize as businesses get bigger, sometimes that's a little hard to do, but it's so important to really live, breathe, and follow through on what you want your business to be. Too many times, it's kind of like core values. A lot of times, business owners will have these mission statements and core values. They sit on the refrigerator in the break room, and that's the only place that they ever get discussed, and also the website. That's the only place they'll get discussed. And if you ask the owner of a company, "Hey, what's your mission statement, your core values?" They might not even be able to tell you what they are. Or if they are, they'll be close. It's not even exactly what they are. And that's someone that's probably not living what they're actually wanting to do as far as what the business is all about. So I would say it's really living and breathing it and making sure you're really following through as the leaders of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, the few minutes I have left with you this afternoon, I'm curious to ask you, well, what do you predict or as the future forecast or future of entrepreneurship? How do you think it'll grow? What do you think it needs to still improve? And what do you see as the future of entrepreneurship from a general perspective?
Um, I think, with AI coming into place, it's somewhat unknown how that will change, how I think it'll integrate into small business, but I think there'll be an opportunity to be a lot more efficient. I think small business sometimes is a little slow to adopt technology, and I think that would be a mistake with AI in particular, because I think there's a lot of chance to be more efficient. So I would say being on the cutting edge, not even necessarily cutting edge, but being on the front edge of technology as it relates to AI can be a way to create efficiency, probably offer things to your clients and customers that you might not be able to offer now. So I would say that would be probably one thing that's top of mind for me is in terms of future for entrepreneurs and businesses.
Yeah, and finally, Tyler, when you look at your personal and professional legacy, I'm curious, how do you want that to be defined?
Wow, that's a great question. I just think empathetic, caring individual, always gave 100%. Um, Really at his heart, cared about people deeply, and understood that by helping people get to where they want to go, it indirectly will help me to be where I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, I know you have your own podcast, my friend, and tell me about the podcast and if people want to get connected with you personally from a podcasting or a business perspective. What's the best way they can do that?
Well, first, my friend, thank you so much for having me on your show. I sure appreciate it. You're a great host. You ask some really good questions. In terms of how you can reach out to me, my website's really easy. It's thinktyler.com. You can go to thinktyler.com and learn a little bit more about me. My podcast is also on there. It's called Think Business with Tyler. I'm sure it's a labor of love for me, that my podcast, and I don't know if you can relate to that. I've 130 plus guests. It's been such a fun journey to be able to talk with people and meet people like you. So once again, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd love to talk with anybody that happens to listen to your show.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with the labor of love side of things, Tyler. I'll tell you, my friend, that I started this podcast 3.5 years ago, and you're my 846 podcasting guest, my friend. So it's either
Wow.
a labor of love or insanity, right?
I have a gentleman that is coming on my show on Monday, and he's has 700 shows. Mastering the Plateau, really really cool guy. If you haven't heard the show, go to Mastering the Plateau and listen to it. He's really great. But he's coming onto my show, and 700 was like, to me, mind blowing. So when you say 800, I didn't realize it was that much. I knew it was a lot. Wow, that is incredible to stick with it for that long. Kudos to you. It is a lot of work and it's a lot of effort.
Well, it's a shining example of commitment, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good for you.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, I want to thank you for your work in the space of entrepreneurship and all you do to inspire the next generation of business owners and entrepreneurs to thank Forward. My friend, your work in this space and time on my behalf. It's most appreciated, and I want to thank you for being here today. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate being part of your podcast, and you had some awesome questions. So thanks again.